Mr. Speaker.
I call Honi Harawera.
Kia ora rā, kia ora mai no rā tātou katoa e te whānau e noho mai nei roto i tō tātou whare i tēnei pō. Kia rātou anō e noho tonu ana ki roto o tautahi. Me mihi atu mai a mātou katoa roto o tēnei whare paremata. Kia rātou i roto i tēnei taimahatanga ke nungia rātou i tēnei wā. Mr. Speaker, watching my whanaunga, tauhinaris whanaunga actually, Tihi Puanaki trying to explain the terror of the earthquake on Te Kaia showed me how serious has been the impact on everyone in and around Christchurch, because I know Tihi well, and she's no shrinking violet. She's a formidable and renowned kapahaka leader, a passionate teacher of the reo, and a real strength in her community. Tihi's story, of course, has been repeated by many others in many ways, every day in every media and in everyone's daily conversations, and confirms the importance of this legislation to assist with the response to the Canterbury earthquake. So we're keen to support this bill, and in particular to acknowledge also the efforts of all those involved in the rebuilding of the devastated communities of Canterbury. So along with other community facilities that have been able to be used, Māori Party MP Rahui Kātene has reminded us to acknowledge the efforts of the people of Ngai Tuahuriri for opening Tuahiwi Marae just north of the CBD to people in need of accommodation. No doubt all the other marae would have been opened up as well, except they were all closed for structural safety assessments. Rahui also asked that we acknowledge the generosity of Ngā Haue Whā marae, whose marae was closed, but who provided mattresses and general supplies to those welfare centres that were open to help those in need throughout Christchurch. Rahui also told us of the work of Te Runanga o Ngaitahu and has asked us to acknowledge them as well for doing their bit to support Ngaitahu families, other Māori living in their takiwā, and in fact all other residents in the stricken area, and for their website, which is a hive of valuable information, tips about how to cope through the crisis, and specific information to help children and families deal with the trauma. We acknowledge also the practical assistance being provided by Ngaitahu through their Tautoko Whānau bank account, which they are proposing be administered by their own kaipaka haere, the Mayor of Christchurch, and a representative of Mātāwaka, and coordinated with other community support initiatives being put in place. And just as a special aside, Rahui told us of one of those little stories which helps lift people's spirits in the midst of disaster. I'm referring here to the offer from Ngāti Kuata and other iwi and Nelson to open Whakatū marae this marae to give whānau a break after a very stressful couple of weeks in Christchurch. The offer from Te Runanga o Ngaitahu to provide transport to and from Nelson, and the offer from iwi around Te Tauihu to provide kai and cater for their manuhiri as well. Mr. Speaker, one of the other big issues that came through to our caucus from Rahui's regular reports was the concern she had that many whānau were opting to stay in their unsafe homes because they couldn't get to welfare centres. Rahui told us of spending a lot of her time last week visiting whānau and kaumatu and Kuia and Dallington and Hornby, and how shocked she was to find that many of them were still without power, water and sewage, and that some of them lacked the transport to even get to the welfare centres, so many of them were opting to just hunker down in their unsafe homes. And hearing these and many other stories from Rahui reminded us that even in times of common disaster, sometimes even support isn't provided to all communities equally. I raise these points, Mr. Speaker, because Rahui also reminds us of the importance of government acknowledging the 30,000 Māori living in Christchurch and recognising that their views and their needs need to be taken on board, along with those of all other members of the community. And I raise these points, Mr. Speaker, because again, Rahui reminds us that it is important to the history of o Tautahi, to the background of the current crisis, and to the future of a rebuilt Canterbury to ensure that Ngaitahu is involved in all decisions being taken during the rebuilding phase to ensure that the impacts and the responses of Māori to the earthquake are properly heard and acted upon. We would like to see in the implementation of this bill the opportunity for tangata whenua to have an equitable say in the decisions which affect them and other Māori in the area, and the opportunity for Ngaitahu to add their considerable community knowledge and resource networks to the efforts to rebuild the district. We will be supporting this bill to assist the recovery and rebuilding of the Canterbury district, but we are reminded again by our southern sister Rahui of the importance that Māori, and specifically Ngaitahu, have formal representation on the Commission to ensure an effective response to the needs and the circumstances of the 30,000 Māori who live in the wider Christchurch area. Kia ora tātou.